What if a single massive project could solve one of the biggest economic puzzles on an entire continent? Well, that's exactly the story we're diving into today. It's a story about incredible ambition, mind-blowing engineering, and a continent's quest for energy independence. Here is the big question. It's a riddle that has baffled people for decades. How can a continent sitting on so much oil spend billions of dollars every year importing the very fuel that comes from its own ground? It's a huge paradox, and it's right at the heart of our story. For generations, it's been the same old story for so many African nations. You pump valuable crude oil out of the ground, you ship it thousands of miles away to get refined, and then you have to buy it back as gasoline or diesel at a much, much higher price. It's a cycle that drains a country's foreign currency and leaves its economy totally exposed to swings in the global market. But what if you could just break that cycle? Well, in Lekki, Nigeria, something truly game-changing has happened. It's the Dangote Petroleum Refinery. And believe me, this isn't just another factory. It's an absolutely audacious attempt to solve that energy paradox once and for all. Okay, let's just try to get our heads around the scale here. When it's running at full steam, this one refinery can process 650,000 barrels of crude oil every single day. That's enough fuel for millions of cars, trucks, and planes, all coming from this one spot. Now, to build something on that scale, you're going to need an equally massive investment. The initial price tag to get this industrial giant up and running was over 19 billion US dollars. That's one of the largest private investments in the history of the continent. And if you're trying to picture just how physically big this is, get this. The main tower, the crude distillation unit, which is basically the heart of the whole operation, stands at 112 meters tall. That is literally taller than the Saturn V rocket that took astronauts to the moon. The engineering here is it's a work of art. It's what's called a single-train refinery. Think of it like one giant, continuous assembly line for oil. It makes the whole process super efficient, it cuts down on costs, and in this case, it just happens to be the largest single-train refinery anywhere in the world. But listen, it's not just about being big, it's also about being smart. There is this thing called the Nelson Complexity Index, which basically measures how good a refinery is at making high-value products. With a score of 10.5, Dangote's refinery is actually more advanced than the average refinery in both the US and Europe. That means it can take cheaper crude oil and turn it into more profitable fuels. So, what you have here is more than just a success story for Nigeria. It's really become a blueprint for how the rest of Africa could achieve energy independence. And the results? Well, they really speak for themselves. Take a look at this. In 1 month, March of 2026, the refinery turned out almost 1.5 billion liters of petrol. After meeting all of Nigeria's needs, there was still a massive surplus of over 400 million liters left to export. Nigeria went from being a net importer to an export powerhouse almost overnight. And the refinery's impact is now being felt all over the world. Its high-quality diesel is powering economies in neighboring African countries. Its urea fertilizer is helping farmers in the US and South America. And, maybe most importantly, its jet fuel is good enough to meet the incredibly strict standards of the European market. I mean, just think about that for a second. In only 2 months, it shipped 1.1 billion liters of jet fuel to Europe. That doesn't just show you the insane scale of production. It's a huge vote of confidence. It proves the quality of the product can compete and win on the world stage. But the success in West Africa was really just the beginning. The story doesn't end there. Now, the Dangote Group is turning its eyes to a new frontier, and it's looking to copy this game-changing model over in East Africa. You see, the problem in East Africa looks a lot like Nigeria's old one. As Kenya's President William Ruto pointed out, the region is importing something like 75% of its refined fuel. That leaves them dealing with the exact same economic vulnerabilities that Nigeria just managed to escape. So what pushed them to change? Well, the trigger wasn't just economic pressure. It was a full-blown political firestorm. A huge corruption scandal in Kenya's fuel sector blew the lid off the problems of relying on imports and created this urgent, desperate need for a completely new way of doing things. So here's how it went down. It turns out a fake fuel shortage was created just to push through this overpriced, low-quality import deal. When the story broke, it was so bad that the country's top 3 energy officials all resigned on the same day. And then, just 3 weeks later, who shows up in Nairobi? Aliko Dangote, proposing a solution to the very crisis that had just exploded, a brand new, self-sufficient refinery for the entire region. And that really brings us to the grand vision here, because this isn't just about building one or two refineries anymore. It's about creating a whole new integrated energy system for the entire continent. And the plan to get there is incredibly ambitious. It all kicks off with a massive IPO to raise money for the expansion. First step, double the capacity of the Nigerian facility. Then take that successful blueprint and build a brand new refinery in Tanzania to serve all of East Africa. So, how are they going to pay for all this? Well, that's where the IPO comes in. The money raised is specifically designed to fuel this continental ambition, with the cash getting split between beefing up the Nigerian plant and providing the seed money to get the new project in Tanzania off the ground. And make no mistake, the clock is ticking on this. Projections show that by 2040, Africa is going to be short about 86 million tons of fuel. To put that into perspective, you'd need to build nearly 3 more Dangote-sized refineries just to fill that gap. The time to build is right now. So, when you boil it all down, why does any of this really matter? Well, it's about the real-world impact. Refining locally means more stable prices when you go to fill up your car. It means governments aren't constantly bleeding US dollars to pay for imports, which helps keep inflation in check. It creates thousands of good jobs, and it builds up entirely new local industries, from plastics to fertilizers. Which brings us right back to our final question. We've seen the incredible technology, the massive scale, and the sheer ambition. The Dangote refinery has already changed the game in West Africa. Now, as this model gets ready to expand across the continent, you have to wonder, is this how a continent finally takes control of its own economic and energy destiny?